Good evening. My name is Tammy. I'm the president of Fun and Adventure at Singles Travel International. And tonight we are presenting Vistas, Vineyards, and Kangaroos. Yes, that's right. We're going down under for this New Year's Eve to ring in the new year in one of the most sought after bucket list destinations for almost everybody. So if you've not been to Australia, I definitely encourage you to watch this presentation. We've got an expert guide for over 10 years in Australia, born and raised there, actually comes from the region that we're going to be visiting, which is called, part of it is called the Great Ocean Road. And before I put my foot in my mouth, I'm going to introduce you to John Gunning from Down Under Answers and let him take over this show. So, John, it's such a pleasure to have you here tonight, and welcome, and we're all yours.
Tammy, thank you very much just for the opportunity also to talk about something that I love, a place that I called home for about 30 odd years prior to moving up here to the United States. And people always ask, so I'll tell everybody, how did I end up here? I met a woman in Australia and she was American, and lo and behold, we ended up back here in the United States. Prior to that, I was very fortunate to work as a guide around Australia and New Zealand for 10 years. So I would be taking people throughout Australia and New Zealand, anywhere from camping in the outback to five-star properties and accommodations throughout Australia and New Zealand. So uh, I'm very lucky in the fact that I feel like I can give a little bit of feedback, a little bit of information on the tour and what you're going to experience, and just also a good overview of Australia and New Zealand. So as we go through, please write those questions down. And as Tammy touched on earlier, I'm more than happy to answer any of those at the end of the presentation, and hopefully give you an idea of what you're going to experience when you travel down under. So we'll get straight into the presentation. It'll probably run for about half an hour, 40 minutes. I've just got about 50 or 60 slides. It's going to cover off the itinerary that Tammy's put together for you, which I think is absolutely outstanding. You're going to hit so many of the highlights that people ask about. And also you're going to hit a few of those little places that I think everybody should go to. But time doesn't always allow for you to get there, but you guys are going to have the chance to do it with the itinerary that's been set up. And also you've got a little bit of diversity in the itinerary as well, that there's some places even Australians probably haven't been to, but everybody who goes there raves about it. So let's get started. Obviously, you all know relatively where Australia is. But one thing a lot of people don't know about Australia is it is obviously big, but it's about the same size as the United States. The only difference is you take out Alaska. Obviously, Alaska up there in the northwest corner, so to speak. I actually live up in Washington State, so a little bit further up the road. So Australia and the US is about the same size. What you do find with Australia, and similar to what happens to anyone that sort of travels to the US as well, it works a lot as a fly and a flop destination. And what do I mean by that? Is that you normally fly to a destination in Australia, spend probably 3 or 4 days in and around that area, and then you fly to the next destination. So you fly somewhere, flop there for a period of time, and then move on. And that's the way this itinerary has been set up as well, with the group obviously starting in Sydney, moving from Sydney over into the state of South Australia and visiting areas such as Adelaide and Kangaroo Island, and then going back to the east coast and down into the bottom part of Australia, down in and around the Melbourne region, and getting to areas that I touched on that a lot of Australians wouldn't have seen, be it the Great Ocean Road, and also down into Phillip Island as well. So you can see on the screen right now, this is just a map of Australia. It's broken down into 6 distinct states and 2 territories. Western Australia obviously is the largest over there on the left-hand side, and the states that you'll be travelling to are in that bottom right-hand corner, that southeast corner, being New South Wales, which is where Sydney is, South Australia, which is where Adelaide is, and then Victoria, which is where Melbourne is and the Australian Open. So you're going to see a lot of great areas that has great food, great wine, wildlife, and also the quintessential Australian experience as well. Now, Australia itself is actually broken down into different areas or zones. So it does have a tropical area, it does have a subtropical area, but then it also has an area that we often just refer to as the outback, literally in the middle of nowhere, where there's very, very few people, but a lot of, I guess, weird and wonderful things in regards to the geology out there, and also in regards to the flora and fauna. As you can see, for those who also know, with the Tropic of Capricorn, it literally goes right through the centre of Australia. about where I've written out back there on the map, that's where the Tropic of Capricorn goes through. So north of that is tropical, south of that is subtropical. What you do find is for the area that you're traveling to, you're going at the best time of the year. So the best time of year to go to the southern parts is roughly around about September, October, through until February, March. Now, Australia is a destination that you can travel to all year round, but in the north, it's broken down to a wet season and a dry season. But in the southern parts where you're going, it is 4 distinct seasons. And when you'll be arriving, it'll be right there in the middle of summer. So the temperatures are going to be around about 25 to 30 degrees. Okay, easiest way, because I'm talking in Celsius there, times it by 2 and add 32. So it's going to be around about somewhere between 85 and 95 Fahrenheit as an idea at that time of the year. Now, your journey obviously starts in Sydney, and I've circled it there on the map to give you a rough idea of where it is if you haven't seen it before. But I'm sure most of you would have seen this shot or something very, very similar to this. This is Sydney. This is what your view is going to be. And that is one thing I'm very fortunate that I get to go back to Australia probably at least once a year. But this is actually what you fly into. When you look out the window, if you're on the right side of the plane, so to speak, you can actually see the Opera House. You can see the bridge. You can see so many of these beautiful sights as you land into Sydney. And it really just sets up your whole journey because the excitement starts from the first time you sight terra firma, the Great Australian Land, so to speak, and seeing these iconic sites. From what you can see on the screen now is obviously 2 places that I'm sure you all know, the Sydney Opera House, and then also what we refer to as the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Many people refer to it as the coat hanger. So you'll be arriving in on the December the 30th. Now, Tammy's done a great job in regards to just really leaving the first couple of days up to yourself to ad hoc and get in and around Sydney and check out different sites. And there's a number of reasons for that. Is also when you do arrive, there will be a lot going on in Sydney because as many of you will know, Sydney is one of the first places that sort of brings in the New Year's. So there'll be a lot of people setting up fireworks, going up onto this beautiful bridge that you can see here, and then also in and around the city centre as well, down in the rocks. However, when you do have your 2 free days in Sydney, so to speak, to explore at own leisure, there's so many things that you can do that's just free of charge. You can see these pylons on either side of the bridge. Now, depending on what day you go, I would suggest going on the first day when you arrive because there's less likely it'll be closed down because of the fireworks being set up. You can actually go into those pylons and go up to the lookout and look out over the bridge and out over the water. You can also walk all the way across the bridge as well. There's a pedestrian area right across the bridge. Now, the bridge itself actually has a railway line running across it. It also has, obviously, a footpath. It has a bike path. And don't quote me on this, but I think it's about an 8 to 9 traffic freeway as well. It's actually the shortest highway in all of Australia. It's called the Bradfield Highway, and it runs from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge. So it's relatively short area, but it's one of the most used freeways anywhere, highways anywhere in all of Australia. As I've mentioned, you're going to have 2 free days into Sydney when you first arrive. So walking across the bridge is a great option. For those who maybe, love botanical gardens, right here on the doorstep is the Sydney Botanical Gardens. And I've shown this shot on the screen right now because it shows you the proximity to where the Opera House is and also the Royal Botanical Gardens. Where your accommodation will be, it will all be within walking distance of all of this that you're going to be able to take it in. So you'll be able to access walking across the bridge. You'll be also be able to head off to the Royal Botanical Gardens. And the Royal Botanical Gardens is not just about the gardens, it's also about the fauna of Australia, but it's also about the Aboriginal history of the region as well. What a lot of people don't know about Australia is it is the longest continuous Aboriginal culture anywhere in the world that they can trace all the way back. There's no gap in the storyline, so to speak. So you can learn about the 200 different Indigenous tribes that were spread across Australia, the 200 different Indigenous language, and that is shared throughout different stories throughout the Botanical Gardens. And there's also free guides in the Botanical Gardens as well. Now, if you're looking for more of a city life, you can go onto the other side of the harbour, and this is an area that's known as Darling Harbour. Now, Darling Harbour was all constructed, made back in 1988 when we celebrated our 200 years, our anniversary. So down here, there are museums, there's the aquarium, there's also the wax museum, there's also some great restaurants, As I mentioned, museums and that as well. But there's also just some great areas to walk in and around this region. That little needle that you can see there in the middle of the screen, that's the Sydney Tower. That's the highest point in Sydney as well. And that may be an option to go up. You can do dinner up there, or you might just want to go up and do some sightseeing. It's a little bit like the CNN Tower, a little bit like going up any of those structures around the world, a little bit like the Eiffel Tower, for one better description as well, to get those 360-degree views in and around a major city. The other area, and you can see this, to the right of the picture that you can see on the screen right now, was the area we just spoke about, Darling Harbour. If you follow the water around underneath the bridge, that's where we started at, and the Botanical Gardens is just there to the right of the Opera House. However, what you can see here right in the foreground is an area that's called Barangaroo. Now, Barangaroo is relatively new. It's only been developed in the last 5 to 10 years, and just really in the last 2 years that they've had it all in place, where there's accommodations there, there's parks here. This is places that people go to eat, go to drink, go to shop. Also some great walking and hiking tracks that allow you to link all the way from the Opera House all the way around to Darling Harbour. So you can do a walk, probably that takes in 3/4 of the harbour that you can see on the screen right now, and then you can cut back through the city back to your accommodation. And of course, one place that's not to be missed in Sydney when you are walking is the Rocks area. And there's a number of different markets that are in the Rocks, and they run from about Wednesday to Sunday each day of the week. And the great thing about the Rocks is this is where all of our heritage is in regards to when it was first set up in Australia. When the convicts come ashore and they realise, whoa, what's going on? This is where they set up all of the convicts' barracks. And this is where you can see a lot of the stories in regards to the first convicts that were sent to Australia. We're going back now, obviously, to 1788. And Australia wasn't discovered until 1770, officially, when they put the flag at the ground. And many of you'll know the reason we started sending convicts to Australia was because of the Boston Tea Party. They said, we're not having any of those English and Irish here anymore. We've got to send them somewhere else. So they decided to send them down to Australia, and the Rocks really tells the story of that region. A little bit further around on the map, right in the heart of the city, so away from the water's edge, is an area that's known as Hyde Park. Hyde Park is where we've got a lot of memorial sites, war memorials, specifically in regards to all the wars that we've been involved in. And one thing that I will touch on, every single conflict that we have been involved in, we've always backed up the US. So you always see a very close connection there with any of our memorial sites. Now, as you touched on at the start of the presentation, Sally, you said you wanted to be somewhere out on the water. This is where you're going to be, my dear. New Year's Eve, you're going to be out there. I can't promise you'll be the only one. That's the only hint. There'll be a few other people out there on the harbour, cruising around, taking in this site.
Wow.
It is pretty special. And this was taken many years ago. I can tell you they've upped the game since this photo. They've now got drones coming into the display. Obviously, drones are everywhere now in regards to what they're doing around the world. So you're going to have hundreds of thousands of drones going off in conjunction with the fireworks and all the pyros going mad, and just really enjoying the beautiful, fireworks. Arguably the best in the world, because even though there's other little countries, New Zealand won't like me saying this, but Auckland gets in there a bit before us, Fiji as well. But what you always see on the news is the fireworks display in Sydney on the 31st, and Tammy's arranged for you guys to be out on the water and to enjoy this. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you like to have a vino or you like to have a cold beer or just a soft drink, this will be something that you'll definitely be raising a glass to out there on the water. You'll have a great time. Fortunately or unfortunately, it'll be, 8 or 9 hours, and then you'll have to get up, and then you'll have one more free day in Sydney. And my suggestion would be, we've shown you those other sites in and around Sydney that you can do on your first 1 or 2 free days into Sydney. I would suggest on January 1st, because this is what all Aussies do on January 1st, they go out to Bondi Beach. Now, Bondi Beach is about 10 to 15 minutes from the city centre where you're staying, and you can get an Uber out there, you can get a taxi, there's a hop-on, hop-off bus, a number of different ways to get out there. I would go out to Bondi, have a look around the beach, have breakfast out here, and if you're so inclined, depending on how you feel, there's also a beautiful walk that you can do, and it goes from Bondi to Bronte. And I'm more than happy to share that information with Tammy if anyone is interested in it. It's about an hour's walk, hour and a half, depending on how quick you go. but there's also a little subsection that you can do as well where you can literally just go up and back. So Bondi Beach is a great place, not too far out of the city. Australia is known for its beach lifestyle, and Bondi Beach is arguably one of the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the world, especially to a major city as well. So after you've spent your 3 nights in Sydney, you've had an opportunity to experience the biggest city in all of Australia. Sydney's home to around about 4.5 to 5 million people. And to give you an idea, Australia as a whole has a population of around about 25 million. So around about, 5 million in and around the Sydney region. We're then going to take you across to South Australia and specifically across to Adelaide. So Tammy and the team have arranged for you guys to have pickups, obviously transferred to and from the airport. And then before you know it, you'll be whizzed off to the airport, fly across to Adelaide. It's around about an hour and a half to 2 hours flight actually in the air, but obviously it'll take a little bit longer to your time you do your transfer and the likes. And then you're going to be touching down and you're going to be staying at the Hilton Adelaide, centrally located hotel, which is a great location to shopping, dining, and entertainment. And as I touched on with Sydney, Sydney was where all the convicts went to start with. That's where they sent them to. However, Adelaide and South Australia always raised their nose a little bit at the rest of them, the rest of us, I should say. I was born in New South Wales, so I'm of convict blood, as they say. But in South Australia, they were the only state to never take convicts. So they always raised their nose a little bit. It's known as the City of Churches. And the great thing about Adelaide is that it's a little bit smaller. It's an area that you can access very easy. They say it only takes 20 minutes to get to any point in the city. And the city has been very, very well designed. It all runs parallel and perpendicular to each other. And it's just a great place to relax. Many people refer to it as a big country town with a city environment. So you'll be staying here. You'll have an opportunity to take in the sights. And a couple of things people don't know about Adelaide, it has many nicknames, as I touched on, the City of Churches. But it also has the largest display of Aboriginal artefacts anywhere in the world. So we'll get you over to Adelaide, have an opportunity to relax a little bit in the afternoon, and then we're going to take you on January the 3rd. Tammy's arranged to take you out to the Barossa Valley. Now, if anyone's drunk any wine out of Australia, it is most likely that it's come out of the Yarra Valley. This has the highest production of wine that is actually imported into the US. So many different wine regions from Adelaide that you can access. One of the most popular would be the Barossa, which you're going to head to, but there's also McLaren Vale and so many other great options as well. Barossa is home to some of the oldest vineyards anywhere in the world. It is also the birthplace of the Australian Shiraz. And you're going to have an opportunity to experience all this on a day out to the Barossa. It's also, as you can imagine, home to some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. And it also has a rich cultural history as well. There's just greenery as far as you can see. The whole state of Western Australia, of South Australia, the whole state of South Australia is known as the Wow State. And the reason they call it the Wow State is because of its wine, its outback, and it's also its wildlife. So on your day out to the Barossa Valley, you're going to have an opportunity to go to a number of different cellar doors, experience the classic wines out in this region. There's around about 25 different wines that you'll be able to taste depending on the days and where you go to throughout the day. You probably won't get them all in, but if you'd like, you can be inspired. But you're also going to be having a beautiful lunch while you're out in the Barossa Valley. It'll be just such a relaxing day. And you're going to be going to a place called Salter's Kitchen, which is one of the award-winning restaurants, vineyards out in this region as well. And the great thing about it is you're going to have an Australian guide who's going to know a lot more about wine than I do, but they're going to showcase what the Barossa is all about and also the difference in regards to the vineyards that you do experience throughout the day. As I mentioned, throughout the day, you do need to keep an eye out and look out for the wildlife, kangaroos, emus, and just really marvel at the changing landscape in and around the Barossa Valley. As we touched on, wildlife, outback wine, it certainly has it all. So, of course, we're going to give you some wine. Of course, you're going to have a chance to see some wildlife, but you're going to also see some of the most beautiful architecture in all of South Australia as well. This will be an opportunity to awaken your other senses as opposed to just your taste buds. You're going to visit a place called the Chateau Yaldara. Here you'll be able to immerse yourself in the grandeur surroundings as the host takes you on a walk through this beautiful building. They're going to take you to the underground, where you're going to have an opportunity to walk. They're going to take you to the hidden tunnels of this beautiful and spectacular chateau. But the day doesn't end there. So you've had good wine, you've had an opportunity to meet some winemakers, you've also seen the wildlife. We're going to take you just to a good Australian country town. The stop is called Tanundra, where you can amble along the high streets, browse in the local shops, or grab yourself a coffee and take a seat and take 20 minutes to yourself and just soak up what a day-to-day life is like in Australia at a small country town. You can literally just watch the world go by. From there, we'll be returning you back to your hotel. And then you'll have a good night's sleep. So you've had 2 nights in the city, because then on January the 4th, after breakfast, an early morning pickup from the hotel, because you're going off to see something quite amazing. And this is one of those destinations that I've been very fortunate enough to talk to people from the United States to about for the last 10 years or so. And they always go, well, why didn't I know about this place before I went? Why doesn't everyone go there? And you're going to find out right now. You're going to catch a coach transfer all the way down to Cape Jarvis. So from Adelaide, where you're staying, all the way down there to Cape Jarvis. And you can see there's a little boat there on my picture. And then that takes you across onto what's known as Kangaroo Island. The area that you'll be traveling through is called the Flora Peninsula. So you'll be able to take in the sights here. So have your camera ready. The sights are beautiful. You'll jump aboard the Sea Link ferry and it'll take you over onto Kangaroo Island. Now, once you arrive onto Kangaroo Island, you'll be met by your guide who's already in the coach, but they'll most likely maybe pick up another guide as well that'll be just with you for the Kangaroo Island aspects. And you're going to be able to listen to just the chorus of the wildlife around you. It'll be a step back in time, so to speak, because over on Kangaroo Island, there's so many different animals to perceive. There's wallabies, there's reptiles, there's an abundance of wildflowers. But your first stop is actually going to be at the Seal Bay Conservancy Park. And here you'll be able to walk among the sea lions as they bask on the beach and also the surrounding sand dunes as well. Following the Seal Bay, you'll then have an opportunity to go for a little bit of a walk along the beach, and then you're going to have a beautiful gourmet picnic-style lunch. And this area for the picnic-style lunch will depend on the day, just depending on the conditions. As I mentioned, it'll be the middle of summer, so they'll probably find somewhere nice and shady underneath a big eucalyptus tree where you can take in the sights. And it's all going to be about trying to see the wildlife during your lunch break. So keep an eye out for koalas. Keep an eye out for the wallabies. Keep an eye out for echidnas. Now, if you don't know what an echidna is, it's like a porcupine, probably the easiest way to explain it, but it's one of the only 2 monotremes in the world. Egg-laying mammal, the other one being the platypus. And if you're very, very lucky, you may see Australia's rarest cockatoo, the Kangaroo Island glossy black cockatoo, which you can see here on the right-hand side of your screen. On your left-hand side is just a little wallaby, the Tamar wallaby. So a little bit different to a kangaroo. They're a lot smaller, a little bit more hunched over, but a lot more agile, so they can get in and around the island and also in and around areas that has a dense population of scrub, so to speak. And of course, it wouldn't be a day on Kangaroo Island without seeing the kangaroos. They are literally everywhere, but the only time you really do see them is at dawn and also at dusk. So that's when they come out and feed. During the day, they will go and lie in the shade or rest up and just take it easy because they don't want to use too much energy. And the great thing about the kangaroos and also for the emu, for that fact, if anyone's ever seen the Australian coat of arms, we have the emu and the kangaroo. The emu and the kangaroo on our coat of arms for a good reason. They're an animal that cannot walk backwards. So have a look at the feet or the hoppers there on the kangaroo. They can't walk backwards. So Australians always perceive themselves as a kangaroo or an emu, and we use it on our coat of arms. So you're always only taking a forward step. And that's the way we view ourselves as a country as well. And for those who can see my little profile picture, that's the Australian flag that happens to be behind me there as well. You'll be spending 2 nights over on Kangaroo Island, and you'll be staying over here at the Mercure Lodge. It's a beautiful hotel fitting in very well to the surrounding environment. Back at the hotel on the first night, you'll have a 2-course dinner and you'll have an opportunity just to relax. It will be a full day, so I normally find this will probably be a pretty early night, but you've got up early, travelled down across the peninsula, across onto the island. So on the first day, you're going to be on the east side of the island. So you can see where you've come across there from Cape Jarvis, come across on the boat. You then come down to the southern part of the island, right there in the middle, down to Seal Bay Conservation Park. And then where I put the circle right there, that's where your accommodation is. That's the Mercure back on Kangaroo Island. So that'll be your first day. Jump up early the next morning, and now you're going to cover all of these other areas down in the bottom left-hand corner, so to speak. Flinders Chase National Park, Admiral's Ark, Remarkables Rocks as well. Now, many of you will know about 4 to 5 years ago, we had big bushfires in Australia. And many people will ask about it. Oh, how's the country come back? One of the biggest places that was hit was actually Kangaroo Island. And the area that was burnt the worst was over here on the western part of Kangaroo Island. However, the country has come back in abundance, and the guide I'm sure will speak about it throughout the day to point out some of the highlights. And they'll actually show you areas that were burnt and areas that weren't burnt. So you can actually see how the vegetation has come back and the sustainability of the island as well. So breakfast will be at your hotel in the morning, picked up early again by your guide. They'll let you know where you need to be. I'll guarantee you won't get lost over on Kangaroo Island. And then you're going to head down to Flinders Chase National Park, one of the oldest and most important national parks in all of South Australia, making up almost 20% of the land. Most of this is just wilderness that is protected and is home to various flora and fauna unique to Kangaroo Island and to Australia as a whole. One of the places that you'll visit and probably take the most photographs, I'd say, on your whole trip will be over here at Admiral's Arch. You take these staircases to get down here to Admiral's Arch. You feel the sea ocean breeze coming through this area. The acoustics are just absolutely amazing as well. And you can actually picture yourself taking your own selfie here, or maybe a few other people that you're traveling with can get in a group. Always ends up being a beautiful photo here. Of course, this region is also very much well known because of the remarkable rocks. And as you can see, this is just a picturesque scenery in itself. At the remarkable rocks, you're going to have an opportunity to relax, take it easy. But these granite boulders balance dramatically on the cliff's edge, which plunge around about 75 meters, so around about 200 odd feet into the Southern Ocean below you. So many different areas to walk in and around here. Now, depending on the day and depending on how quick everybody's moving, if you got away on time and all those sorts of things, and how much you spend at each place, you would definitely go to Remarkable Rocks. You'll definitely go down to Admiral's Arch. But there's also a few other places, depending on the guide, they may incorporate into a day's itinerary. So don't hold us to this, but they may include going off to a eucalyptus oil refinery, or you may go off to a honey farm. Now, the honey farm I always found quite cool because it's a third-generation family business, and it's home to the only pure strain of Bulgarian bee anywhere in the world. So if you like honey, you've definitely got to have some down on Kangaroo Island. Then following this, you've done a little bit of sightseeing. They'll then take you back to the hotel, and you've got your last night there back at the hotel over at Mercure. With that being said, after you've spent your time on Kangaroo Island, you're then going to depart and you're going to head across to Victoria. So yet again, after breakfast, you'll be transferred to the airport for your travel to Adelaide, where you'll be transferred to the airport at Kangaroo Island, where you'll then fly back to Adelaide and then connect across into Melbourne. Once you arrive into Melbourne, you'll be collected by your guide, and then you'll be taken down into the city centre, and you're staying here at the Hilton on Little Queen Street. And I'd be interested to get your feedback after you come back. Just let Tammy know, or anyone else you're travelling with, whether or not you preferred Melbourne or Sydney. There's always a little bit of a battle. And I've been fortunate enough, I lived in Sydney sort of growing up, and then I lived in Melbourne for 10 years prior to coming to the States. People always have a favourite. I don't want to say which one I preferred, but someone always comes back and says, oh, I preferred Sydney or I preferred Melbourne. I think they're both amazing cities. But one thing about Melbourne is it's better designed than Sydney. As I mentioned, they brought all the convicts to Sydney and they just spread them out. It's a little bit like a rabbit warren or a rat race. Whereas in Melbourne, they realised the mistakes that they'd made. And when they designed Melbourne, every single city block is 1 mile, and every single street runs parallel and perpendicular to each other. So every block is 1 mile all the way around. So it's a very easy city to navigate. It's a very easy city to get around. It also has a tram system that is free of charge that takes you anywhere in Zone 1. And Roger, I know you're heading out to the tennis, and we'll talk about that a little shortly, but you can catch the tram straight out to the tennis. Or if you want to get a bit of exercise, you can actually follow the tram tracks out and just walk all the way out to the tennis as well. So it's not that, to give you an idea, all of a sudden it's not that far from the city to get out to the major stadiums. Melbourne is often referred to as the sports capital of the world. Now, I know that's a big call, but when you start thinking about it, I think it has a little bit backing it. It has the Australian Open. It also has the Grand Prix. It has the major golfing events when the President's Cup is held. They're held down in Melbourne as well. So Melbourne does very well in regards to what it delivers. And it also has all of the Australian football codes as well, well presented in Melbourne. So you'll be dropped off at the Hilton, drop your bags off, put them away, get your walking shoes off, and then this afternoon you're going to go off and do a lanes and arcades tour. Here you'll join a local guide who will take you through Melbourne's beautiful back streets and get orientated in the life of the city that locals love. As I mentioned, I lived here for 10 years, but it wasn't until I did the official walking tour that I actually learned about all these little alleyways and that I wouldn't have discovered by myself. And if you love coffee, you've got to have a coffee in Melbourne. Arguably, I think the best coffee in the world. There's only a couple of places that Starbucks failed. One of those was Australia, and Melbourne, for good reason, was one of the first places that said, no Starbucks here. We've got so many boutique coffee shops throughout. And if you love a good coffee, get yourself a nice little latte or a flat white in one of the arcades. On your tour, you're going to take in some of the specialty retailers, see quirky cafes, independent designers, street art, architecture, and learn of all the historic tales in and around these back alleyways. It also has some amazing graffiti art throughout the streets as well. This obviously pays homage to the Joker and Heath Ledger. And this changes actually throughout the years in different places where they'll paint over it and then they'll do something new as they go on. So following your walking tour, you will have some time to orientate yourself, have a little bit of a look around Melbourne, maybe go off and find something that you found in a guidebook prior to traveling that you do want to check out, or maybe you just want to head back to the hotel because it's all very much within walking distance from where you're staying there on the little street. The next day, on January 7th, after breakfast at your hotel, you'll be met by your local driver who will then take you on an adventure along the Great Ocean Road. However, here you're going to pack an overnight bag as you'll be staying overnight, storing your main luggage at the Hilton. So you're going to be away for a couple of nights, store your luggage here at the Hilton, and then take your little bag. You won't need too much as you head along the Great Ocean Road. Here you're going to experience one of the most beautiful scenic drives anywhere in the South Pacific and arguably in the world. If anyone's ever driven the Big Sur Drive in California, many people equate it to something similar to that. So the Great Ocean Road is a permanent memorial to those who died while fighting in World War I. Built by returned servicemen, it winds around the rugged southern coast and was a huge engineering feat, ending decades of isolation for Lorne and other coastal communities. During the next 2 days of your touring, you will get to see the stunning scenery this area is so well known for. You'll stop and have an opportunity to see this shot that you can see here is the 12 Apostles. You'll also stop at places such as Apollo Bay, and you'll also have an opportunity to see one of the most visited sites along the Great Ocean Road, Loch Ard Gorge as well. We actually had a Prime Minister, similar to a president, for want of a better description, who actually went out for a swim here one day and never came back. So there's some quite fascinating stories about that as well. Whilst you're along the Great Ocean Road and time and conditions permitting, you'll have an opportunity to go up into the wildlife as well and up into the wilderness and go to an area that's known as the Otway Ranges, a truly unique day out, taking in the coastline, but also into the beautiful forest in and along this way as well. Following taking in all the beautiful sights, you're then going to head back to Geelong. You're not going all the way back to Melbourne. That's why you packed a little bag just for one night. You're now going to stay in Geelong at a place called the Ridges. Geelong is the second largest Victorian city, but it continues to grow. Melbourne and Geelong have almost joined up as one. But they say that the population of Geelong is around about 300,000, but it's a great place just to relax, take it easy, have a night, and then early in the next morning, as you can see here by the map, Geelong's over here on your left-hand side. This is where you'll be staying. So as opposed to driving all the way back up into Melbourne, going through all the city traffic and basically backtracking, you're actually going to go across the Queenscliff. You're going to drive across the Queenscliff and you're going to go on the Sea Road ferries that you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen. This is a really easy process. These ferries go every hour. They take about 40 minutes to get you from Queenscliff across to Sorrento. And I can tell you the scenery is absolutely beautiful. I actually used to live down in this area near Ocean Grove, as you can see on the map. And I've taken this ferry many times across the peninsula as well. Once you arrive over into the other side of the peninsula, you're going to have an opportunity to explore what's known as the Mornington Peninsula. So Tammy and the team have included the 4 Parks Pass, which is going to allow you to go off to the Koala Conservation Centre, Churchill Island, where you're going to see a number of different animals and that as well. You're going to also have an opportunity to see the Antarctic journey. Many people don't know you're not too far from Antarctica. Literally just go straight down from Melbourne, Victoria, and you'll be down into Antarctica. And of course, the quintessential reason that you are going down to Phillip Island and to experience this part of the world is to see these beautiful little penguins. You're going to head to an area that's called Reach Summerland Beach just before dusk. The Penguin Parade is one of Australia's most popular tourist attractions. Witness the penguins' daily journey from the sea to the land. Full of a day's catch of fish, these little penguins come up onto the ocean. They're amazing to watch because what they do is they actually time their run. The wave will come in, they'll swim in a little bit, turn around and go back, run in again, swim and go back, and then all of a sudden they'll just dart for it when they feel for it, and they take up parts of the beach, and then you'll get iconic shots similar to what you can see on the screen right now. I will mention, after you watch the penguin parade, the penguins don't come out until dusk, and you're going to be there about the longest day of the year because you're there in the middle of summer. So you'll then have dinner after this, and then you will make your journey back into Melbourne. They'll have a beautiful restaurant, most likely at a place called Rusty's Water Bar. However, subject to change, but normally they go off and take you off to this beautiful place where you can have a local brew, have a good meal, and then you head back into Melbourne. You won't get back into Melbourne until around about 10 or 11 o'clock because you've had to watch the penguins, grab some dinner, and you get back a little bit later into the city. So you're back into the city, back to the hotel, and you're going to be here for 2 more nights. So get a good night's rest because you got back a little bit later, but we're going to let you have a sleep in early the next morning, have a sleep in, and your day doesn't start until 10 o'clock. So after breakfast, that later start, you're going to head out into the Yarra Valley. So the Yarra Valley is the area that I've circled there on the screen right now. And this is one of the prominent wine regions outside of Melbourne, and also arguably one of the closest wine regions anywhere in Australia to a capital city. So you're going to have an opportunity to head out into the Yarra Valley. Throughout the day, you're going to stop off at 3 different places where you can have lunch, where you're going to have an opportunity to sample the wines. One of the vineyards that you'll definitely go to is Di Bartoli Winery. And then you'll also have an opportunity to visit Coomballa Yarra Valley as well. Once the home of world-famous opera singer Dame Nellie Melba. But the day doesn't finish there. So good wine again, good food. You're also going to have an opportunity to head off to a chocolate and creamery place as well. And I can tell you the locals out here just love meeting people from around the world, and you're going to be absolutely spoiled. Your bellies are going to be full. You're going to feel pretty good about yourself, and then you're going to head back into the city, and you've got the evening of leisure back into Melbourne. And then fortunately or unfortunately, that's going to bring you to the end of your time in Melbourne. However, as they always say, tennis anyone? And I know, Roger, you're heading off to see the tennis. And then at the same time, Tammy, I'm sure you've got a few words to share with these beautiful people that's going to experience something that I called home and I still call home and look forward to seeing at least once a year.
Wow, that was amazing. I had a very fun time planning this tour, but doing the research, and this just brought it all to life for me. And I'm really excited for our members who are going to get a chance to do this trip. I mean, I'm amazed. It is so beautiful. Thank you so much, John. I'm going to go ahead and take the screen right now so that I can show everybody how to actually book this vacation. So let me go ahead and change over. I'm going to get over to our trip page, and before you know it, it'll be here. On our vacation page, you can start from the homepage and search the destination Australia. You're able to search the time of the year. It happens to be one of the feature trips on our homepage right now, so very easy to find. We just brought this tour out last week, and half of our premium deals are gone. As Sally said, some of our friends from Cuba last year joined. And so if you're a single over 50 who loves land vacations instead of cruises, or even if you like cruises, but you also like land vacations, this would be for you. We often get calls from members asking us, are you all cruises? And we are definitely not. We're like 50-50. And so this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for those who are land only. But if you want to combine, the reason we did these tours back to back was so that you could come to Sydney on the 19th of December, then cruise on the Celebrity Edge for 2 weeks in New Zealand exclusively. So once you get on board the ship, it's all New Zealand. When you come back to Sydney on January 2nd, you would join this Vistas, Vineyards and Kangaroos tour, giving yourself a 23-day program. And, you know, once we would be remiss to say that to go to Sydney or to go to Australia or New Zealand, one at a time. You're going to fly for most of us here in the United States. It's a good 24-hour journey. It actually takes 2 days to get over because of the fact that you're crossing the international date line. So we really encourage our members to try to do both. But if you're not able, then join us for Sydney for New Year's and then do the 8-day tour. So couple of highlights about our trip pages because it's for singles. First of all of our accommodations are single occupancy. We don't make you share, and we always give you a great deal for your own accommodations. We call it your own space. Some other features about our websites that make it very appealing for singles who are traveling alone is our trip chat page. Once you join a program and you're logged in, it's a little early since we just launched this last week. We don't have anybody chatting yet. That gets a little active toward the several months before the trip departs. So since we're just under a year, that'll get active later. But we also have, and I was showing how to get here from this nav bar here on the left-hand side. We have a who's going section. We'll bring us back down here. And you can just take a look at any time at who's going. Roger, I'm going to use you as a sample since you're in the room tonight. I'm clicking on Roger's profile. There's his picture. I'm able to see his profile. I'm able to send him a message. I can make Roger my friend. Just click on that real quick and let's see if this comes up quickly. I didn't plan to do this, but it's always a nice feature that most websites don't have built in. A lot of them use Facebook. So maybe because I'm on Zoom, it didn't quite work, but you're able to make friends and chat with them in messaging. That's double blinded, and it will hit Rogers. If I were to send a message, it would hit his inbox in his personal box, and he would have to log in and find the message and answer me back. All of that is found in the headline of your profile when you log in. So how do you get on this trip? As I said, we've got the back-to-back New Zealand. So there's a link here if you come in and you want to check that out, or ring in the new year with our 3-night Sydney option. And to make your reservation, you click book now. Once you're on the trip page, and you have a couple of choices. So we have a premium membership, which is a small annual amount. It's $397. And what that does is give you lower rates for your own space on every vacation that we offer. Mostly the best deals are right in the beginning when we launch the new vacation. But there is always a better price for premium members. So keep that in mind. It could be a better price plus an added amenity or just a better price. We started another program this year or last year rather, when we rolled out our luxury product line, and it's called, it gives our members the advantage to pay over time. You're able to set up a payment plan with us, or right on the web page, you can see pay balance by check or Zelle. So in this case, you're still going to do the deposit of $750, but your total for the price, which you would pay the difference then at the final payment date, by check or send us a Zelle payment, and you're saving the credit card fees. So in this case, if you're a premium member, you're getting a savings of $1,270. That's including your premium deal savings plus the credit card fees. Then if you choose to pay by credit card, a lot of us are building up points, and to go to Australia, you might just need an extra few thousand points to get that upgrade to business class or to first class. So if you want to just go ahead and use your credit card, then you would choose this option. And as a premium member, you save $940. Not really sure you want to be part of the membership, you would choose the 8-night tour with no premium membership, and the total price is $76.99. So those are the 3 ways to sign up for the vacation, and 3 ways to pay, 2 ways to pay, 2 ways to save. And we know sometimes when you're new to the community, it seems, well, I kind of want to check this out a little bit before I take a step to join the membership. But most people that don't buy it up front end up doing it when they come back. And as you can see, the savings, even on the credit card payment, is $940. The membership is only $397. So it's almost a no-brainer that you would want to be part of this membership. Then after this trip, here's what else you benefit from. Anytime we have a brand new vacation, you automatically get a 24-hour head start over any non-premium member in our community, and we have about 20,000. So you get a 24-hour head start, and you'll receive then the day that the trip goes live at 5 p.m. Eastern time. On the day it goes live, you get an email and a text message. So again, our members who are premium love this advantage. They get the 24-hour preview email, and then when the trip, they get a chance to look at what's included, what's the destination, and when the trip goes live the following day, they're ready. They get that text, they click on the button, and they go right in and make those reservations. Sometimes we have a little bit more space available. Sometimes there's only 5 or 6. As I said, in this case, we have 10, and we have 5 members booked already. So if you're thinking about this, some of our members like to wait for the preview. So let's just say that if you, now that you've seen John's presentation, I would recommend that you get online tonight and make that reservation. So go ahead and click one of the step 1 accommodations. Then in this case, you would do deposit only because we're far out. You pay the balance later. And then if you're not a member and you chose one of the premium options, then go ahead and add your membership if you're not already. And if you are not doing the New Zealand cruise, then we recommend and encourage you to book the 3-night package in Sydney, and then go ahead and check out. So that is a real summary of the different modules that we have going on for this fantastic New Year's Eve vacation. No more sitting back and relaxing. I know a lot of us over 50 were like, we've been there, we've done that. Well, you haven't been there and you haven't done this. And I'm so excited because John, you mentioned, and I didn't realize that, you'll be one of the first to celebrate New Year's Eve in 25. So at this time, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, then I would just hope that we get to meet you sometime in the future live. And we welcome you for thank you for coming tonight. Have a great evening, and we're going to turn off the recording right now and get with some of our members who are here live with us and start a little Q&A session. Thanks for joining.